What would happen to Earth if humans went extinct? Deep within Guatemala's rainforest sits one of the most famous remnants of the Maya civilization. A roughly 2,000-year-old citadel turns to ruins called Tikal. When Alan Wiesman hiked through the surrounding region, he discovered something fascinating along the way. You're walking through this really dense rainforest, and you're walking over hills, said Wiesman, author and journalist, and the archaeologists are explaining to you that what you're really walking over are pyramids and cities that haven't been excavated. In other words, we know about sites like Tikal because humans have gone to great efforts to dig up and restore their remains. Meanwhile, countless other ruins remain hidden, sealed beneath forest and earth. It's just amazingly thrilling how fast nature can bury us, Wiesman told Live Science. This scene from the rainforest allows us a glimpse of what our planet could look like if humans simply stopped existing. Lately, that idea has been especially pertinent as the global COVID-19 pandemic has kept people inside and emboldened animals to return to our quieter urban environments, giving us a sense of what life might look like if we retreated further into the background. Wiesman, who wrote The World Without Us, spent several years interviewing experts and systematically investigating this question: what would happen to our planet, to our cities, to our industries, to nature if humans disappeared? A different kind of skyline. There are several developing theories for what could drive humanity to extinction, and it is unlikely that we'd all simply disappear in an instant. Nevertheless, imagining our sudden and complete eradication from the planet, perhaps by an as yet undiscovered human-specific virus, Wiesman said, is the most powerful way to explore what could occur if humans left the planet. In Wiesman's own research, the question took him firstly into cities, where some of the most dramatic and immediate changes would unfold thanks to a sudden lack of human maintenance. Without people to run pumps that divert rainfalls and rising groundwater, the subways of huge sprawling cities like London and New York City would flood within hours of our disappearance. Wiesman learned during his research, engineers have told me that it would take about 36 hours for the subways to flood completely, he said. Lacking human oversight, glitches in oil refineries and nuclear plants would go unchecked, likely resulting in massive fires, nuclear explosions, and devastating nuclear fallout. There's going to be a gush of radiation if suddenly we disappear, and that's a real wild card. It's almost impossible to predict what that's going to do, Wiesman said. Similarly, in the wake of our demise, we'd leave behind mountains of waste, much of it plastic, which would likely persist for thousands of years, with effects on wildlife that we are only now beginning to understand. Meanwhile, petroleum waste that spills or seeps into the ground at industrial sites and factories would be broken down and reused by microbes and plants, which would probably take decades. Persistent organic pollutants, POPs, human-made chemicals such as PCBs that currently can't be broken down in nature would take much longer, Wiesman says. Some of these POPs may be around until the end of time on Earth. In time, however, they will be safely buried away. The combined rapid and slow release of all the polluting waste we leave behind would undoubtedly have damaging effects on surrounding habitats and wildlife. But that doesn't necessarily mean total destruction. We need only look at the rebounding of wildlife at the site of Chernobyl nuclear disaster to understand that nature can be resilient on short timescales, even under such extremes. While that polluting legacy unfolds, water running underground in cities could corrode the metal structures that hold up the streets above subterranean transport systems, and whole avenues would collapse, transformed suddenly into mid-city rivers, Wiesman explained. Over successive winters, without humans to do regular de-icing, pavements would crack, providing new niches for seeds to take root, carried on the wind and excreted by overflying birds, and develop into trees that continue the gradual dismemberment of pavements and roads. The same would happen to bridges, without humans there to weed out rock saplings taking root between the steel rivets. Coupled with general degradation, this would dismantle these structures within a few hundred years. With all this fresh new habitat opening up, nature would stoically march in, passing over the formerly concrete jungle with grasslands, shrubbery, and dense stands of trees that would cause the accumulation of dry organic material, such as leaves and twigs, providing the perfect fodder for fires sparked by lightning, which would go roaring through the maze of buildings and streets, potentially razing whole parts of cities to the ground. Fires are going to create a lot of charred material that will fall to the street, which is going to be terrific for nurturing biological life. The streets will convert to little grasslands and forests growing up within 500 years, as Wiesman tells it. Over hundreds of years, as buildings are subjected to sustained damage from erosion and fire, they would degrade, he said. The first to topple would be modern glass and metal structures that would shatter and rust. But tellingly, buildings that will last the longest are the ones made out of the earth itself, like stone structures, Wiesman added. Even those would become a softened version of their former selves. Eventually, the defined iconic skylines we know so well today would be no more. Where the wild things are. Looking behind the city limits to the great swathes of farmland that currently cover half of Earth's habitable land, there would be a swift recovery of insects as the application of pesticides and other chemicals ceases with humanity's demise. That's going to start a real cascade of events, Wiesman said. Once the insects are doing better, then the plants are going to do much better than the birds. Surrounding habitats, plant communities, soils, waterways, and oceans will recover, free from the far-reaching influence that chemicals have on ecosystems today. That, in turn, will encourage more wildlife to move in and take up residence. This transition will precipitate an increase in biodiversity on a global scale. Researchers who have modeled the diversity of megafauna, the likes of lions, elephants, tigers, rhinoceroses, and bears across the planet, have revealed that the world used to be exceptionally rich in these species, but that changed when humans began to spread across the planet, hunting these animals and invading their habitats. As humans migrated out of Africa and Eurasia to other parts of the globe, we see a consistent increase in extinction rates following the arrival of humans, explained Soren Forby, a lecturer in macroecology and macroevolution at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden. In Australia, there is an increase in extinction near 60,000 years ago. In North and South America, an increase is seen about 15,000 years ago, and in Madagascar and in Caribbean islands, a drastic increase is seen a few thousand years ago. Without humans spreading to the far corners of the earth and driving down megafauna populations, the entire planet could have been as diverse in these species as the famed Serengeti in East Africa is today. Forby told Live Science. Effectively, there used to be large animals everywhere, and there would be large animals everywhere around the globe without human involvement. His research has revealed that without humanity's heavy species impact, the central United States and parts of South America would be the most megafauna-rich places on Earth today. Animals like elephants would become a common sight in the Mediterranean islands. There would even be rhinoceroses across most of northern Europe. Without humans, could Earth reclaim that diversity? Even if we did suddenly disappear from the picture, it would still take millions of years for the planet to recover from those past extinctions. Forby and his colleagues have calculated. They investigated what it would take to return to a baseline level of species richness and a distribution of large-bodied animals across the planet that mirrors what we had before modern humans fanned out across the globe. They estimated it would take somewhere between 3 and up to 7 million or more years to get back to the pre-extinction baseline, explained Jens Christian Svenning, a professor of macroecology and biogeography at the Aarhus University in Denmark, and a colleague of Forby's who has worked on the same body of research. Basically, if there weren't human impacts, the whole world would be one big wilderness, Svenning told Live Science.